You're listening to the Productive Therapist Podcast, the world's greatest and most brilliant resource for busy therapists who'd rather be laying on a beach in Hawaii. Every week we share helpful tips on where to put what, how to do this, that and the other, and the best way to get your ducks in a row. And now here's your host, licensed therapist, head nerd, and productivity Yoda, Uriah Guilford.
Hello and welcome to the podcast. Today I got a chance to talk to Mandy, who's a therapist who owns a growing psychotherapy practice in Coon Rapids. And through her growth, she has navigated adding employees and therefore payroll, benefits, and build-outs of their space through expansion. Her combination of clinical and business knowledge allows her to provide practical knowledge to those interested in growing their private practice. Along with her husband, they have expanded into supporting other group practice owners with the pain points on the journey to successfully and accurately paying staff without the huge time commitments often involved with spreadsheets that need data to be refined. I hope you enjoy my conversation with Mandy and the very cool solutions that her and her husband have created. Hi, Mandy. Welcome to the podcast.
Hi. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. I'm excited to talk to you today because I think you have created some solutions for group practice owners that are much needed. So I'm excited to get into the nerdy details of all of it.
Yeah, I'm excited. We really tried to develop something that really comes from an organic place of like my own needs as a practice owner. So it feels like a natural extension to try to cascade the solutions we've created to other people.
That's good. They say the best way to start a business is to solve your own problem and then create that and then offer that to others. And that's exactly what I did with Productive Therapists too. So That's good. Yeah. You know, what would be awesome is if you don't mind sharing a little bit about your story and your practice and then kind of get into mindful solutions as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So I am a licensed clinical social worker. So my trade was kind of came up through the ranks as a hospital social worker. And when I decided I wanted to do something different, I joined a group practice locally here in the Twin Cities. And after I got my feet wet there and learned the things that I felt like I needed to learn, I felt a really strong desire to grow something a little bit differently that was my own. And so I hung my own shingle, as they say, and I started my practice, Mindful Wellbeing, in 2017, I think it was. And nope, that's not right. I don't know. The dates are always so COVID, I feel like has like created this weird time warp for me. 2017 is when I started as a clinician in private practice. 2019 would be when I started my practice itself. And very quickly, I decided and determined that it wasn't going to be good enough for me to just see my own clients. I needed to create a larger impact. So that was when I pivoted to group practice ownership and started hiring some folks and saying yes. And it's been a journey ever since. We're growing and changing and moving all the time. Yeah.
A quick question on that. When you were working in the group practice previously, did you have the idea that at some point in the future, I want to do this as well?
Not initially. I think initially I was very happy to be in the group practice and to kind of be under the umbrella of someone else who could really provide the guidance and a lot of, honestly, the business pieces. I wasn't interested at the time. But as you grow and people start seeking you out directly, instead of just being part of a group practice, when people start asking for you by name, something starts to shift. And so for some people, they're very happy to stay within that group practice model. And for me, it was a combination of you end up in under group practices sometimes hitting a limit of what your earnings can be. Understandably, group practice owners need to keep some of the money that they, that you're helping generate. And so that just was kind of the natural iteration for me. Once I could drive my own referrals and people were seeking me out, I wanted to have more control over the business aspects, and I had a desire to learn those pieces.
Absolutely. That's cool. So I'm curious, as a group practice owner, like what are some of the routine things that take up the most time for you and maybe even for other people that you've talked to?
I think that it really varies depending on how you've grown into your practice. But by and large, a lot of us folks aren't trained professionally in business skills. So for me, that has been, the most time. Some of the most time-consuming things are just the steep learning curve that is understanding everything from insurance-based, which is where we are, an insurance-based practice, to understanding the cadence of paying taxes and quarterly pieces of that. And then things like as you grow beyond yourself of payroll and managing people is obviously a humongous part of the job. So I think that those things really take a lot of time. The piece that I don't think, and I would be the first to say I probably did some things, quote unquote, out of order of a lot of people, because I do tend to have a tendency to kind of jump in and figure things out as I go. And I think they call that like a quick starter, so like I just jump in and do that. But that does mean that sometimes I have to go back and build out some systems and processes. And so that's kind of the journey I've been on professionally of the last 9 months or so, has been to really try to firm up some of these things that we've kind of been doing as we go to be more like scalable and able to replicate across multiple people. And then the other big piece is, things about billing. So billing, payroll, anything numbers for me personally is a tall order.
I agree with you on that one. Yeah. And it seems like anybody who starts a group practice almost across the board starts by doing absolutely everything from the top to the bottom, which in some ways is a good thing, because you're forced to learn, like you said, all the things, the ins and outs of insurance and whatnot. But then slowly over time, as you grow, you need to sort of delegate those things, because it just doesn't make sense. It's not like sustainable to do everything. And then there become certain things that take up the most time, at least in my experience, tends to be like, handling intake is a big one. Insurance billing is a big one. And then at some point, when the group practice grows, certainly payroll can become a beast, can't it? Yeah.
Yeah. And there's, so many rules and those kinds of things that you really want to be cautious of and be following, both state and federal kind of oversight. And it just obviously has this extra layer of responsibility, because for a lot of people, this isn't just, for a handful of people who are doing part-time, sure, it's just extra income. But for a lot of people, this is their income. And so it's a mindset shift. When I went from just me and maybe there's an insurance payment that's just like hanging out, it's been 3 months, I could be like, well, I can look at my bank account, I can make it work, right? I'll make that call to the insurance company later. You don't have that privilege to do that when you end up, having people reporting into you, because they are depending on those pieces. So you do have to focus in on that systems component to make things running smoothly.
Yeah, because the last thing you want to do, or the last thing I want to do, is not pay somebody or pay them incorrectly, because you don't want to mess with somebody's livelihood.
Absolutely.
Is super critical. Yeah. I remember when I started my group practice, it was back in 2015. And I actually started with independent contractors, because I just felt like there was too much complexity with W-2s and paying taxes and running payroll. So I wanted to do it as simple as possible, which was fine. And it worked out well for about a year. And then I decided to switch over, because it just made sense for many reasons to do so. And then I found out actually it wasn't as bad as I thought, with the right payroll company and the right support. It was actually not too terrible. But then when I got to 10 clinicians or so, definitely payroll was taking a lot of time.
Yes.
And I know on your website, you talk about wanting to work smarter and not harder. So I was wondering if you could say something about that. It sounds as self-explanatory, but I'm curious what that means to you.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the things that I learned really early, and I continue to learn, is that there's really no need to reinvent the wheel. So even though, we've got this new endeavor of our business supporting folks and that kind of thing, everything that I have grown and added, whether it's that business or even in my practice, I go to people who have gone before me, right? I ask a lot of questions of people in the industry, and in some circumstances, of course, we need to compensate people for their time and attention to those things, because that's valuable information. But leaning into that collective, the community of people, and really diversifying your community or your people you go to when there's different things in front of you is really important. So for me, working smarter, not harder is about building community with one another, so that I can, if I've got a new wrench that I haven't anticipated before or seen before, I have, 3-4 people I can quickly do a call or a text or a, hey, have you seen this? And we can come together and they can share their knowledge, and it truly can go both ways too. So I try to also kind of give back to other people who are, on the road of establishing practices, because I've been gifted and granted so much time and energy from people who are doing the same thing. So it's kind of like a pay it forward system. The other thing that comes up when I hear work smarter, not harder is that no matter where you're going in group practice, it's very important, in my opinion, to have clarity around your vision and your values for yourself and your company. if you give yourself that gift early, and it's not an easy process by any means, like it's a lot of rumbling, but if you can be really clear on that, nearly every challenge that you can encounter, you can come back to those vision and values and say, okay, there's misalignment here. Now I know what my answer is. It just provides you clarity around decision making, and that's, around people. It's around decisions about growth or not, and it's even around what is the best use of your time and energy and skill set. So I think that's really, really important.
Yeah, I love both of those things. So number one, use your network and your community, and don't try to just figure it out by yourself, right? Mm-hmm. And then also focus and refocus on your mission and values. That's always a good idea. I like that.
Mm-hmm. The last thing that came up for me with this particular question is around understanding what you're good at and what you should maybe pay someone else to do. So, because like you said, when you get into private practice, many of us wear all the hats, and it is out of necessity. We're too lean. You can't afford it. All of those things are true. But eventually you start to realize what you are really good at and what could be done by somebody else even better, quicker, better quality. And also what it frees you up to use your energy where you actually are uplifted instead of the stuff that's kind of draining you. So those exercises on the front end about vision, values, and like, what's my jam and what is something I would happily, if I had a bunch of money, pay somebody else to do, is a very helpful thing in getting clear on where should you focus your time and energy.
That's great. It's that listening to you, it sounds like you read the book that I'm just writing right now, because we're speaking the same language on a lot of these things. Mm-hmm. That's fantastic. Yeah. That's good. So I'm curious, I know you have a unique sort of partnership with your husband. I'm curious about how that came together, but how did you come to decide that you wanted to create a solution for payroll and for other aspects of the business? I think you call it data management. Is that correct?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it really was born out of a pain point. So as you mentioned kind of at the start of our conversation, a lot of the solutions that people come up with, or the best kind of business models, are modeled after things that were pain points. And this is very true for me. So, after many, many months of him hearing me lament, like, it's payroll, oh my gosh, like this is a lot, this is a big task, and feeling the stress of it. And he developed an awareness of how long it was kind of taking me to do. So he would say, like, you're still working on that, or, things like that. That would just be a nod to, like his expectation. It should have been done a lot sooner. And so one day, a long time ago, we've roped him in on different business things. So he's got the right credentials, if you will, to be able to help me out in the business where we need it. And so he sat down with me and said, like, show me what you're doing. And the reason he asked that is because his background is in all of these IT processes. His literal, like, full-time job is organized around simplifying things for people and automating or attempting to automate the processes and standardizing them. Mm-hmm. So he watched me do my whole payroll cycle, which meant, downloading the information from the EHR, big messy spreadsheet where you've got to take out zero payments and all kinds of things, sort it by clinician, apply their splits correctly by, copy pasting, right? Just like from the past payroll, things like that. And he said, that doesn't have to take you that long. There's so many things that I could do to make this simpler. And so he built out a program for me to where we would upload the file. It runs through that data, it knows what to expect. It knows the parameters that it needs to pull out and simplify. And then it spits out this beautiful report that's split into the per clinician piece, and also gives me a practice summary so I can see really quickly where is the practice at in any given month. And, after just doing that just a handful of times myself, I shared with a colleague, and she said, that right there, that's a business, right? People will pay for that. And
right.
So we kind of wrestled with it for a bit. And what we ended up deciding was like, yes, let's build this out for people. And the biggest piece was, that when we tell people what we do, the immediate piece is like, okay, well, they really ask about the affordability of it, right? They're asking me questions like, well, are you going to jack up your prices in 2 years or a year? And I'm like, I don't have intention of doing that. I mean, as a mid-practice owner, small to mid, I had to imagine it at a price point that I would pay for, mm-hmm. right? Like, I'm not we're not trying to just like get a bunch of people enrolled and then like jack things up, because who wants to pay for that? This particular population I'm trying to target are people like me who don't want to pay a payroll person full time yet. And maybe I'll get there someday, right? But I'm not big enough. I still want knowledge of my numbers and I want some control over it. But I need some help with the pieces because I have 100% paid people the wrong thing from, like the wrong spreadsheet,
Right.
the copy paste, the wrong, splits. All of it has happened to me and it's because of my own human error. So having these things automated removes a lot of that risk for me of doing that and allows my people to get paid, in a timely fashion correctly without me interfering, if you will.
That's wonderful. Can you give me an idea about the time savings? So like prior to using this program that your husband created, how many hours was it taking you to prepare payroll on a every 2-week basis?
Yeah, so I pay twice a month. And so I would say on average, it was about an hour and a half each payroll. So about 3 hours a month for me. Certainly there's people who do it a little quicker or what have you, but there was inevitably something that needed my attention or a correction or something. So I would say start to finish, that's what it took then. Now it takes just a few minutes. So I have to download the report, upload it, and then we run the program technically our business says we have up to 2 business days to get you back the file. So there's a little bit of prepping people in ensuring the timeliness of things isn't too disrupted. But thus far, we've been able to get the data back actually the same day. We just built in that cushion, to grow a little bit. But once you get that report back, it's just a few minutes going into the payroll system and putting those numbers in. We also offer opportunity to automate that a little bit more too and get a custom spreadsheet you could just upload to some of the payroll softwares out there. So you can even remove that potential for error of just even
nice.
the miskeying the numbers or copy pasting errors there too. So there's some things like that we can offer people, which is helpful. So it's really hours to minutes is truly accurate. And we've had a few people, who report that too.
I feel like if you can stack some of those types of solutions, you can save so much time. And this goes back to what we were talking about too, working smarter, not harder. Absolutely. Using technology and services like yours to sort of buy back your time and save time is a huge advantage. That's so cool. It occurs to me, I've thought about this many times, that the structure of most group practices and the way we compensate people is more complicated than a lot of other service-based businesses. Even just to compare my group practice to Productive Therapist. Everybody at Productive Therapist is hourly, and they're hourly based employees. So calculating payroll is so simple. It's not hard at all. But for my group practice, it's 10, not 10 levels harder, but it's significantly harder, right? So that's a factor. And I know we were working with one of our members just in the last month, and it was taking her 5 hours to do payroll twice a month. And that situation was mostly because of the complexity of her compensation structure. So we helped her way simplify that. And then the actual crunching of the numbers became easier. So that's really nice. But the information that most people can get from their EHR doesn't come ready to go, does it?
I think that they do their best in a lot of ways. And through this process now, I've had the privilege of seeing quite a few different EHRs in a different light, through actual data, which is really cool because when you sample them, to test an EHR, it's not the same experience at all. And I say that they all take a stab at this and yet there's still room for improvement. And as we know, the EHRs are really, really good and handy, but they're not necessarily exclusively focused on and shouldn't be treated like an accounting software. And they also, have this limited application even for payroll. So I prefer the messier report, the better. What I mean is the most raw data we can get rather than using some of the reports that some of the EHRs create exclusively for payroll where they do the calculations or what have you. We really prefer the raw data because we can dive into just some nuances. One of our earliest clients, we found a mistake really quickly that, was actually more of a human error piece, but it's just, again, highlights how blind we can be to our own processes and understanding it, especially as people, again, not trained with those business and numbers pieces in mind. So I think there's a lot of empowerment we provide by getting people these numbers a little bit differently and educating them on some of the nuances of how to maximize their EHR capabilities as well.
That's really good. Yeah, we used to have to do a lot manually because I use Simple Practice, and their payroll report was not really usable for a good long time. And that was mostly because it didn't export like it didn't show you what sessions and what fees were going into their calculations. Now you can,
Right.
fortunately, for a while, a couple of years now, you probably know this already. You can export the payroll report, which is pretty reliable and pretty good, and then
Mhm.
show it to the clinician as needed to show like, hey, here's your paycheck and here's what actually
Yes.
where that's coming from. So that's useful,
Mhm.
but it doesn't, doesn't do any calculations. It doesn't do any of the heavy lifting for you, which it sounds like your
Mhm.
tool does, which is cool. Your service.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
we
awesome.
also find that people with EHRs are doing a lot of like shortcutting, which is really understandable in the moment. You get a
Ah,
retraction from the insurance company and you're trying to make it look pretty for your people and all of that. And so there's a lot of like understandable like fudging, I guess I would say people do within. And so part of this process is also helping them understand that, we do it in these like really calculated ways that work with your EHR. You can get reporting out still that's very accurate, but also is really a good capture of what actually happened versus something you're just trying to correct because there's, and it's difficult for some people to make that shift, but it's been, I think, really helpful for them to understand that the data is there. We just have to work with it. And instead of, shortcutting it with this solution or this
mm-hmm.
application of a credit or what have you, let's not do that. Let's trust that the EHR is going to spit that out, and it does. So there's just some learning for practice owners too about a lot of aspects about things that they don't have the capacity to do, or they're just don't know that they should even know about. So,
And how do you support practice owners in kind of getting up to speed with those ideas and kind of making that change? How do you help that happen?
yeah, I'm not of the opinion that I am any sort of expert over a lot of other people. I'm right along learning with them a lot of the times. But so what I do is just provide, as far as kind of like our cadence or our flow, is that we filled an inquiry, we offer a free consult to just make sure it's aligned, make sure that what they're asking for is something, in the bucket of what we're offering right now. And then we do kind of an onboarding period, and it can be anywhere from 2 to 4 weeks, depending on all kinds of pieces of it. And in that, there's a lot of communicating back and forth about trying to get some historical payroll calculations and data, as well as the EHR raw data, and trying to start building out the pieces that we need. And then we do a lot of checking back and validation to make sure that we're
Mm-hmm.
getting close to or at the same calculations. And I only say close to because, again, because of human error and some of the things that people do to just make it work, sometimes we have to make an adjustment there that we don't see to be completely lined up until we're a little bit further. So, it can take upwards of that 4 weeks to really refine how to do it, but it really ends up being a very simple process for people. Every subsequent payroll, once things kind of go live, they have that raw data they upload, as well as what we call a clinician data spreadsheet, where they record all of the splits, whatever the compensation model is. So splits or hourlies. We're currently working on a client who's got some pretty complicated group data. And so, there's really not data that we can't work with as long as the EHR can capture it. We can write out and I shouldn't say we, my husband is the brains behind all the coding. But, he says, as long as there's a rule we can follow, we can write a code for it. So there's a lot that we can do to manipulate that data to be what people need on the back end.
That's really terrific. I want to put a footnote in here too, because not only is it important to handle payroll efficiently and effectively for the benefit of your team, but also for any potential audits that happen, because it could happen. And it actually happened to me about 2 years ago. I got a payroll tax audit in the state of California, and they wanted to look at everything for it went back 3 years. They wanted to look back for 3 years, and I must have given them like hundreds of documents, at least 200 documents. And I needed to show that what I paid people was very close, was exactly matched up with how we recorded their time and everything. Everything had to match up, right? So the ability to have records to show that are reliable and that will pass audit is like so critical. And it sounds like if people work with you in Mindful Solutions, they will have really good data and records for all the
Mhm.
payrolls going forward, right?
Yeah, the piece that we haven't really fully incorporated yet, because there's a lot of nuances, a little bit related to the hourly, like the recording of people's actual time worked. There's a lot of interpretation that people do with that. I certainly provide some kind of suggestions and coaching on how to optimize it. Usually it's a separate piece that's probably one of the only pieces of manual input we still ask the employer to do. So we ask the group practice owner every payroll to go in and toggle, report out like number of hours of supervision, that kind of thing. We
Sure.
haven't graduated to just pushing like a spreadsheet to them to complete or anything that we ask them to kind of have that moment of clarity, mindfulness, intentionality to really round out with the raw data. So that is one piece that we still kind of leave in their camp. Additionally, a lot of payroll companies already have that built in. So they already have the hour tracking component. It's the raw data that they need to put the calculations in. That's what we typically focus on.
That makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I'm really impressed with, I haven't even seen anything, but just hearing about it and visualizing it. When I hear you talk about saving hours of time every month, every payroll period, I think I know a lot of people that could really use that. So I'm really glad that you and your husband have put this together. It's very cool. Mm-hmm. And where can people find out more and maybe even sign up for a consult?
Yeah, so we have a website, mindfulsolutionsmn.com, and there you can see a little bit more about what we do. In addition to the payroll piece, which has been the primary focus, we've fielded some inquiries and kind of earmarked some projects that are, opportunities for growth as we continue to grow. We're looking at potentially publishing some like EOS dashboard kind of things. So some more places for people to kind of come and do. Most of the things that we do are subscription-based models, so they would be provided like a client portal where they would provide some data to us, and we would spit out some metrics and reporting. So that's an area we're looking to grow as well as just like funky like spreadsheet requests, right? Like if you're wanting to do a deep dive in, like, gosh, I need to figure out why this part is happening to my finances, or why that piece. We're not necessarily like trained formally in those accounting pieces, but especially if it involves raw data and you're just needing some more evidence to, for or against, like, should we keep this group up, or man, I think we need to incorporate this or this. We can pull some of the like revenue and help people understand the data to help make informed choices. So all that is kind of on the table. We have different price points for both the payroll stuff, which is more of the subscription-based, or like the project-based work, which we would do with some estimates of time involved and that kind of thing. So there's lots of spaces we're going to be growing. So definitely keep your eyes peeled for that too.
That's good to know. Can you give your husband like an upvote from me for the EOS dashboard? Because I think that could be amazing. I've actually been looking for and or wanting to create, but I don't have the knowledge and skills like your husband does. Some sort of dashboard for group practice owners, because there's nothing out there I found some really good spreadsheets that people have created, and those are fantastic, but nothing that excites me. So definitely let me know about that one when that comes down the pike.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, that's again, like personal journey, right? Or like my business journey and kind of taking that. So the first step is to try to I'm like the test pilot for all the things, right? And then we'll work on it. So that is certainly on the list of things to focus in on. And I think dashboards are definitely a big piece of what's coming for practice owners to understand as we work on continuing to carve out our space with all the different levels of competition there are. Everybody can hang their own shingle, which is great. And there's certain group draws to group practice ownership, but you have to be making informed decisions about where to invest your time, your energy, and your money. And these kinds of things like dashboards are going to be really pivotal for those of us who are in that arena.
Absolutely. Yeah. Making decisions based on the actual numbers and the data versus just intuition or gut feeling. It's really, really smart. Excellent. Well, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. It was wonderful to talk to you.
Yeah. Thank you so much for having me.